Hello dear students, welcome to online CET class for NEET and Karnataka CET. In this video, I am going to discuss some multiple choice questions on 11th PU topic transport in plants. The topic basically deals with the study of the different methods of transports that occur in the plant body and even from one cell to another cell. It may be the active transport or it may be passive transport. The long distance movement of the substances within the plant body is called translocation. The long distance movement of the substances within the plant body is called translocation, and there are two types of translocations: organic translocation and inorganic translocation. Inorganic translocation is carried out by the xylem and organic translocation is carried out by the phloem. Apart from these, the transports which commonly occur within the plant body are osmosis and diffusion. So, in diffusion, the facilitated diffusion is also observed. The movement of single ion, the movement of two ions in the same direction, the movement of two ions in the different directions, uniport, symport and antiport. The plasmolysis definition and what happens during the plasmolysis, then stomatal movement, transpiration, the bulk transportation of sugars through the phloem, which is called mass flow hypothesis or Munch hypothesis, and like that the transpiration pull theory, which explains about the xylem translocation. So directly let us move to the questions, and wherever it is necessary with reference to the theoretical part, in detail I will explain during the discussion of questions only. Here I have selected the NCERT questions also, along with the previous year questions and NCERT based questions from exemplar NCERT also. I have selected the questions for the discussion on the topic transport in plants. So let us move to the question. So here is the first question. Active and passive transports across the cell membrane differ in. What is the difference between active transport and passive transport? That you need to remember and understand clearly so that you can mark the correct answer. The active and passive transport, both of them are the transports occurring in the plant body for the conduction of the water and mineral ions, but there is a little bit difference. So in active transport, the energy is required. In active transport, the energy is consumed in the form of ATP, and active transport is little bit rapid process as compared to passive transport. So here the energy is consumed in the form of ATP to execute the active transport, whereas the passive transport, the name itself is indicating the movement of molecules occur from the region of their higher concentration to the region of their lower concentration without expenditure of energy. No consumption of energy or energy is not utilized as compared to active process. The passive transport is a little bit slow. So active transport compulsorily the energy is utilized in the form of ATP, and in passive transport there is no need of using the energy. So because in passive transport the molecules move from higher concentrated area to lower concentrated area. So there is no need of any energy for the execution of the transport. Therefore, the correct option for this one is active transport is more rapid as compared to the passive transport. So this is the right answer for the given question. So moving to the next one. Yes. In the figure shown, facilitated diffusion. What is that facilitated diffusion? If diffusion is occurring through the specific membrane proteins, when the diffusion occurs through specific membrane proteins, it is called facilitated diffusion. Facilitated diffusion is nothing but it is the diffusion occurring through membrane proteins. Membrane is nothing but plasma membrane. The membrane proteins are allowing for the diffusion. If the diffusion occurs through the membrane proteins, it is called the facilitated diffusion. So here you can see in the image also in the diagram, the transport protein is marked here. So this is one protein, this is another protein, and this is one more protein. So in the image, 3 proteins are mentioned. This is the movement of one molecule, and arrow mark is directed here. The 2 molecules are moving, one inside and one outside. Here the 2 molecules are moving in the same direction. For the second one, the movement is occurring in the opposite direction. So here there is movement of only one molecule. Here the movement of the molecules is occurring in the same direction. So depending on that, we need to identify what this diagram is indicating or explaining. So movement of one molecule through the transport protein, whether it may be inward movement or it may be outward movement. The movement of single molecule is called uniport. The 2 molecules are moving in opposite direction. Because they are moving in the opposite direction, this is called antiport. And here the 2 molecules are moving in the same direction. This is called symport. So this is the right option. A represents uniport. Sorry, first one represents uniport, second one represents antiport, and third one is representing the symport. All these are the types related to facilitated diffusion because there is involvement of the membrane protein through which the molecules are moving either into the cell or out of the cell. Therefore, for this, the right option is option 4. Uniport, antiport and symport. Then moving to the next one. Yes, this one is interesting. The pathway of water from soil up to the secondary xylem is very interesting question. So before explaining this particular question, let us study about the transverse section of root so that the entire thing will be very easy and you can go for the correct option. The outermost covering of root is called epiblema. The outermost covering of the root is called epiblema. Let me mark this one. The epiblema is not covered by the protective covering called cuticle. So epiblema is a single layered structure and it is made up of the simple plant tissue and it is parenchyma. The epiblema produces unicellular outgrowths and these unicellular outgrowths are nothing but root hairs. From the parenchyma cells of epiblema, the root hairs are produced and these are unicellular outgrowths. And this is the soil where the water is present. let us mark this as soil, and let us take one more color to highlight the water molecule of the soil. So soil contains water molecule. Because of the hygroscopic property, the water molecules are present within the soil. This is root hair and this is water and soil. So below the epiblema, the next part of the root is called cortex. The region below the epiblema in the root is called cortex. And interesting part is that cortex is also made up of parenchyma, and remember, cortex is always multi-layered. More than 3 layers are generally present in the cortex, and cortex is also made up of parenchyma. And point to notice is that cells of the parenchyma in epiblema are compactly arranged. What is the meaning of that compactly arranged? There is no gap between the cells. But look at the parenchyma cells of the cortex region. They are loosely arranged with intercellular spaces. The gaps between the cells are called intercellular spaces. The presence of well-developed intercellular space is the important character of the parenchyma, and this region below the epiblema is representing the cortex. Okay, next to the cortex, the outermost layer of stellar region is endodermis. Before endodermis, there is pericycle. Let me draw the pericycle. Below the endodermis, the pericycle is, endodermis is the innermost layer. Extremely sorry. These are the cells of endodermis. Once again, endodermis is also made up of parenchyma. Let us mark this one. This is endodermis. Endo means inside, epi means outside. The interesting character of the cells of endodermis is the tangential walls. That means the wall which is between two cells of the endodermis, they are either deposited by lignin or they are deposited by the suberin. And this particular part is called Casparian strip, and the Casparian strip is made up of either lignin or it is made up of suberin. And remember, both of them are impermeable to water. That means they do not allow the movement of water through them. Then below the endodermis, the next part of the root is the pericycle. Let me draw the pericycle. Again, pericycle is also made up of parenchyma only, and let us mark this structure. It is pericycle. So pericycle is outermost part of the stellar region. The term I am using is stellar region. Which is called stellar region? It consists of pericycle, it consists of vascular bundles, it consists of pith, and it consists of medullary rays. Then you may have the question, if this is the pericycle, to this the vascular bundles are attached. Then question is, what is vascular bundle? It is a bundle of xylem and phloem, because xylem and phloem are the vascular tissues. Xylem is water conducting tissue and phloem is food conducting tissue. So the xylem and phloem, where they are present in the form of bundles, it is called vascular bundle. The vascular bundles are attached to the pericycle. The vascular bundles, I'm not getting the pen. Yes, here I got. The vascular bundles are attached to the, this is pericycle, and here is the vascular bundle. Central part is called pith, and vascular bundles are separated by the elongated parenchyma cells, which are called medullary rays. This entire portion represents the stellar region. It is applicable to both root as well as stem. If you use the term the stellar region, understood, it is covered by pericycle. Outside the pericycle, endodermis is present. To the pericycle, vascular bundles are attached. The central part of the stellar region is represented by the pith, and vascular bundles are separated by medullary rays. So now I have to draw the vascular bundle, specifically xylem and phloem. So xylem is dead tissue. This is the representation for xylem. So these are the protoxylem elements. The smaller vessels of xylem represents protoxylem, and this is metaxylem. The xylem with larger vessels is called metaxylem, and xylem with smaller vessels is called protoxylem. Hope you are familiar. The xylem is water conducting complex permanent tissue, and it is made up of 4 cellular elements. The xylem is water conducting complex tissue. The xylem is made up of 4 cellular elements. One is tracheids, another is trachea or vessels, one more is xylem parenchyma, and the last one is xylem sclerenchyma. So among 4 cellular elements, tracheids are dead at maturity, trachea are also dead at maturity, xylem sclerenchyma is also dead at maturity. Only xylem parenchyma is in the living condition. So the water which is present in the soil, finally it has to reach the metaxylem element, and through the metaxylem element it is transported to each and every part of the plant body. So in the question what is asked, pathway of the water from soil up to the secondary xylem. So water which is present in the soil, first it enters into the root hair, then from root hair it passes through the epiblemma, then move into the cortex, then cortex to endodermis, below the endodermis pericycle, pericycle to protoxylem, and finally it reaches the metaxylem. So this movement of the water from soil up to the xylem within the root, this particular movement is called the radial movement of water. This is called the radial movement of water, and radial movement of the water is possible because of the presence of Casparian strips. The Casparian strips, as they are made up of lignin or suberin, they do not allow the movement of water. So finally water has to move along the radius of the root only. This movement is called the radial movement of the water, and through this one finally the water reaches the metaxylem. Then moving to the next question. The primary difference between apoplast and symplast is that, okay, once again the very interesting question. The primary difference between apoplast and symplast. I have selected some specific questions so that the content which is deleted, that is also included in the questions, and I can go for the explanation. The two methods of transport or pathways can be observed in the plant body. For 21st question, now I am giving the explanation. Apoplastic pathway, one is apoplastic pathway and another is symplastic pathway. So there are two different pathways, apoplastic pathway and symplastic pathway. Say for example, it is outermost covering of either it may be root or it may be stem. So let me mark this one as epidermis, and below the epidermis in both root as well as stem we can see the presence of cortex, and as explained for the previous question, the cortex is made up of loosely arranged parenchyma cells, and important character is presence of intercellular spaces. When any substance passes through the epidermis, it comes in contact with the cortex. Let us take the example of water. Assume this is the water molecule which has passed or crossed the epidermis. Now it has reached the cortex, that means present below the epidermis. So after passing through the epidermis, the molecules to enter into next part or next tissue of the plant body, they have the two choices, apoplastic pathway and symplastic pathway. What is that? The one choice, very easy choice, this particular water molecule can easily pass through the intercellular space and it may come in contact with other part of the plant body, that is endodermis. So what happened here? The water molecule directly it has passed through the intercellular space without entering into any cell. Through the intercellular spaces, the water molecule passes and they come in contact with the endodermis. This method of movement is called apoplastic pathway. There is one more option. See, all these plant cells are connected to each other with the help of plasmodesmata. If I draw a small tube-like structure here, this is the cell of epidermis and this is the cell of cortex. But all the cells are connected to one another. There is a chain of connection between all the cells. And these connecting cells, let me draw the two adjacent plant cells here. These are the two plant cells and both of them are interconnected with the help of a cytoplasmic tube, and this is called plasmodesmata. Through the plasmodesmata, let us assume the water molecule, it enters through the plasmodesmata from this cell to this cell, mark it as 1 and mark it as 2. From first cell to second cell, if it passes through the plasmodesmata, then reaches the endodermis, the type of the pathway is called the symplastic pathway. If the movement of molecules occur through the plasmodesmata within the plant tissues, it is called symplastic pathway. If the movement of molecules occur very easily through the intercellular spaces which are present in between the tissues, it is called apoplastic pathway. And with the help of both the pathways, there we can see the transport of molecules within the plant body. Sometimes it is through the apoplastic pathway and sometimes it is through the symplastic pathway, both of them are carried out or occurring within the plant body. So what is the question here? The primary difference between apoplast and symplast is that, very simple, if it is a symplastic pathway, the molecule enter into the cell. But in apoplastic pathway, the molecules are moving through the intercellular spaces. Therefore, the right option for this one is apoplast is non-living spaces in cell walls. So these are the non-living spaces through which the movement of molecules is occurring. Next, the Casparian strip prevents water and minerals from entering into the steel through the, very interesting question, through the apoplast. What I explained here, if the movement of molecules occur in the apoplastic pathway, they will move through the intercellular spaces. But what is the character of endodermis? If I consider this as endodermis, let us draw the endodermis, little bit larger endodermis. I can go here. So this is the endodermis. Even endodermis is also made up of parenchyma cells. But a special character of the endodermis made up of parenchyma cells is that the tangential walls, that means the connecting side walls, are deposited by either lignin or suberin. And this particular strip is called Casparian strip. This is called the Casparian strip. And this Casparian strip, as it is made up of lignin or suberin, it is impermeable to water. Say for example, the water molecules have reached the endodermis. Through which pathway? Let us assume they have reached the, let me mark, this is the water molecule and it has reached the endodermis through the apoplastic pathway. But once the water molecules reach the endodermis, they cannot show the apoplastic pathway because intercellular spaces are absent, and if at all the water enters into the endodermis, assume the water molecule is entered into the endodermal cell. Towards this side and towards this side of the cell, that means on adjacent side of the cell, there is a presence of Casparian strip. Casparian strip is present and it is impermeable to water. Therefore, water molecule cannot move either in this direction or in this direction. Then question is, how it will enter into the xylem? Only with the help of plasmodesmata. There is no choice. Only with the help of plasmodesmata, finally, the water enter into the xylem. And remember, in the root, whether it is a dicot root or it is monocot root, the type of the vascular bundles are the radial vascular bundle. That is, xylem and phloem are arranged along the radius. They are arranged along the radius of root. So through the radius only, when water passes, it will enter into the xylem. So presence of Casparian strips prevent the apoplastic movement of water within the root. Then moving to the next one, here it is match the following. The processes are given in one column and what is happening during that process is given in another column. Let us find out which one is the correct match the following. Let me take the pen. Okay. So transpiration, what happens in transpiration? Transpiration is unavoidable process. Here, the loss of water occur in the form of vapor from the plant parts, especially aerial parts of the plant parts, particularly leaves, because leaves contain the minute openings known as stomata. So through the stomata, through the lenticel, the transpiration occur, and during transpiration, the loss of the water occur in the form of vapor, and the correct matching is point number 3. Guttation. Another interesting process observed in some plants. Here, the loss of the water occur in the form of liquid along the margin. It is nothing but guttation. Later I will draw the diagram. Exudation, loss of water from injured plant parts. Not only water, even milky latex. If you cut the stem of Calotropis, means ಎಕ್ಕೆ ಗಿಡನ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ನೀವು ಕಟ್ ಮಾಡಿದರೆ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಕಂಟಿನ್ಯೂಸ್ ಆಗಿ ಒಂದು ಹಾಲ್ ಥರದ ಸಬ್ಸ್ಟೆನ್ಸ್ ಹೊರಗೆ ಬರ್ತದೆ. ಇಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಕಾಲ್ಡ್ ಮಿಲ್ಕಿ ಲೇಟೆಕ್ಸ್, ದಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಕಾಲ್ಡ್ ಎಕ್ಸುಡೇಷನ್. and fermentation, anaerobic respiration carried out by the yeast. So with this, the correct match the following becomes option 3. So let us go for the guttation and transpiration as comparison. So both guttation and transpiration. So during guttation, guttation is uncontrolled process. It cannot be controlled. It is uncontrolled process. During guttation, loss of water occur in the form of droplet or in the form of liquid. See, if I draw the leaf like this, along the leaf margin, the special structures are present. They are called hydathodes. And these hydathodes, they always remain open. They never close like stomata. They always remain in the opened condition, and through these hydathodes, the loss of the water is observed in the form of the droplet, and it is called guttation. Remember, during the guttation, whatever the water is lost in the form of droplet, it is all impure water, because it contains the dissolved contents like sucrose and mineral ions. Therefore, the loss of the water during guttation occurs is completely impure water. Whereas in case of transpiration, during transpiration, the loss of water occur in the form of vapor. The loss of water occur in the form of vapor, and transpiration can be controlled. Of course, sometimes transpiration is resulting in much loss of the water, but it can be controlled. So during the transpiration, whatever the water is lost in the form of vapor, it is in pure condition, and the structures which show the transpiration are stomata and lenticel. But lenticular transpiration is negligible. Stomatal transpiration result in 90% of loss of the water, where each stomata is made up of 2 kidney shaped cells called guard cells, and the guard cells contain the cytoplasm, nucleus and the chloroplast. The guard cells are surrounded by modified parenchyma cells. They are called subsidiary cell, and these two are the guard cells. This is stomatal cavity or aperture, the entire structure is called stomatal apparatus. This is the difference between the transpiration and guttation, and this one is the right option. Option 3 is the correct option for the given question. So moving to the next one. Which of the following is used as anti-transpirant? Any chemical or any substance, if it is used to reduce the rate of transpiration, it is called anti-transpirant against the transpiration. So because more loss of the water occur during the transpiration, if maximum water is lost in the transpiration, that will interrupt or reduce the yield. So maximum yield production is not possible when the water loss is maximum during the transpiration. And among the given option, which can be used as anti-transpirant? The answer is phenyl mercuric acetate. Phenyl mercuric acetate chemical can be used as anti-transpirant. Spraying of this one on the crop plant reduces or checks the rate of transpiration. Then coming to the next one. Water is lost in a liquid state in some plants through hydathodes, and these hydathodes, just now I explained about this one in the previous question. When loss of the water occur in the liquid state, that means in the form of droplet, not in the form of vapor, and that to be it is taking place through the hydathodes, then hydathodes are, what is the character of hydathodes? They always remain open. They do not close at all. They will be in the opened condition. So the right answer for this one is option 1. The rate of transpiration will be very less in a situation where environment is very hot and dry, relative humidity is very high, groundwater is sufficiently available, wind is blowing with a very high velocity. Interesting question. Rate of transpiration is affected by many factors. Of course, internal as well as external factor. The internal factor, number of stomata, especially functional stomata, distribution of the stomata on upper epidermis as well as lower epidermis, and the external factors affecting or controlling the rate of transpiration are the wind velocity, temperature and humidity. So what is asked in the question? The rate of transpiration will be very less when we can see the less transpiration if relative humidity is very high. If the moisture content in the atmosphere is very high, then the rate of transpiration is very less. High temperature, very hot and dry environment, high wind velocity, these factors they promote the rate of transpiration. There will be very high rate of transpiration observed if the atmosphere is very dry, if the wind velocity, blowing wind velocity is very high, if the humidity is very low. Low humidity, high transpiration, high humidity, less transpiration. So the correct answer for this question is option 2. So moving to the next one. Yes, this one is very important question. Actually with the solution only I have selected. Let me explain what this is explaining. In the topic you need to concentrate on one concept, a very small bit of the chapter. It is water potential. Water potential represented by psi W. The unit used to measure is bars or Pascal. Both of them are used, but generally we consider bars. So water potential, difference in the free energy of pure water and water in a solution. Say for example, this is a semi-permeable membrane, and here on one side of the semi-permeable membrane we have pure water. Nothing solute is added in this pure water, and on another side, let it mark as B and A and this one as B, here is solution. When we call it as solution, no doubt it contains solute plus solvent. And which one is the universal solvent? Water is universal solvent. Whatever the amount of solvent is added, that is not important. If you add only 0.1 gram of solute also, the mixture is known as solution. Of course, its concentration will be changing from one solution to another solution. If the solute is completely absent, then we can say it as pure solvent or pure water. Free energy of the water molecule, which is used for the movement, the free energy is nothing but that water potential. Difference in the free energy of water molecule in the pure water and the water molecule in the solution is called water potential. So ಇವಾಗ ನಾನು ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಏನು ಹೇಳಿದೆ, ಪ್ಯೂರ್ ವಾಟರ್ ಒಳಗೆ ಯಾವ ಸಾಲ್ಯೂಟು ಇಲ್ಲ. ದಟ್ ಮೀನ್ಸ್ ವಾಟರ್ ಮಾಲಿಕ್ಯೂಲಿಗೆ ಕೊಲಿಜನ್ ಮಾಡೋಕೆ, ಅಂದರೆ ಬಂಬಾರ್ಡ್ ಆಗೋಕೆ, ಕಾಂಪೀಟ್ ಮಾಡೋಕೆ ಯಾವುದೇ ಥರದ್ದು ಸಾಲ್ಯೂಟ್ ಪಾರ್ಟಿಕಲ್ಸ್ ಇಲ್ಲ. ದೇರ್ ಫೋರ್ the free energy of the water molecule in the pure water will be very high. So free energy ಏನಾಗ್ಬಿಡ್ತದಿಲ್ಲೇ ಹೈ ಇರ್ತದ. And one more thing you remember exactly, this is very important, free energy of water molecule in pure water molecule is always considered as zero. So pure water ನಾವು zero ಅಂತ ತಗೊಂಡಾಗ ಯಾವುದೇ ಸೊಲ್ಯೂಷನ್ ಅದು ವಾಟರ್ ಪೊಟೆನ್ಷಿಯಲ್ ಅನ್ನು ನಾವು ಕ್ಯಾಲ್ಕುಲೇಟ್ ಮಾಡಿದರೆ 100% we will get the values in ಮೈನಸ್ ಅಥವಾ ನೆಗೆಟಿವ್ ವ್ಯಾಲ್ಯೂಸ್ಗಳು ಬರ್ತಾವೆ ನಮಗೆ. ಸೊ ನೀವು ಸೊಲ್ಯೂಷನ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದಾಗ ಸಾಲ್ಯೂಟ್ ಪಾರ್ಟಿಕಲ್ಸ್ ಆರ್ ಬಂಬಾರ್ಡಿಂಗ್ ವಿತ್ ದ ವಾಟರ್ ಮಾಲಿಕ್ಯೂಲ್, ಅಂದರೆ ಕೊಲಿಷನ್ ಆಗ್ತದೆ. ಸಾಲ್ಯೂಟ್ ಪಾರ್ಟಿಕಲ್ಲು ವಾಟರ್ ಮಾಲಿಕ್ಯೂಲ್ ಜೋಡಿ ಕೊಲೈಡ್ ಆದರೆ, ಕೊಲಿಷನ್ ಮಾಡಿದರೆ ನ್ಯಾಚುರಲಿ ಫ್ರೀ ಎನರ್ಜಿ ಆಫ್ ದ ವಾಟರ್ ಮಾಲಿಕ್ಯೂಲ್ ರೆಡ್ಯೂಸಸ್. ದೇರ್ಫೋರ್ ವಾಟರ್ ಪೊಟೆನ್ಷಿಯಲ್ ಈಸ್ ಡಿಫೈನ್ಡ್ ಆಸ್ difference in the free energy of water molecule in the pure water and the water molecule in a solution. So coming to the discussion here, water potential of any solution can be determined with a simple equation, psi W is equal to psi S plus psi P, where psi S is the solute potential or osmotic potential, both can be considered. ಈ psi S ಅನ್ನು ನೀವು ಆಸ್ಮೋಟಿಕ್ ಪೊಟೆನ್ಷಿಯಲ್ ಅಂತಾರೆ ಕರಿಬಹುದು ಅಥವಾ ಸಾಲ್ಯೂಟ್ ಪೊಟೆನ್ಷಿಯಲ್ ಅಂತಾರೆ ಕರಿಬಹುದು. ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ psi P ಈಸ್ ಕಾಲ್ಡ್ ದ ಪ್ರೆಷರ್ ಪೊಟೆನ್ಷಿಯಲ್. psi P ನ ಪ್ರೆಷರ್ ಪೊಟೆನ್ಷಿಯಲ್ ಅಂತ ಕರೀತಾರೆ. ಸೊ ಹಿಯರ್ ಇಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಪ್ರೆಷರ್ ಪೊಟೆನ್ಷಿಯಲ್. psi S ಈಸ್ ಆಲ್ವೇಸ್ ನೆಗೆಟಿವ್. psi S ದ ವ್ಯಾಲ್ಯೂ ಯಾವಾಗಲೂ ನೆಗೆಟಿವ್ನೇ ಇರ್ತದೆ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ psi P ವ್ಯಾಲ್ಯೂ ಯಾವಾಗಲೂ ಪಾಸಿಟಿವ್ನೇ ಇರ್ತದೆ. ಬಿಕಾಸ್ ಸಾಲ್ಯೂಟ್ಸ್ ಆರ್ ಎಕ್ಸರ್ಟಿಂಗ್ ದ ಪ್ರೆಷರ್, ಇಟ್ ಟ್ರೈಸ್ ಟು ಪ್ರಿವೆಂಟ್ ದ ಆಸ್ಮೋಸಿಸ್. ಅಂದರೆ ವಾಟರ್ ಮಾಲಿಕ್ಯೂಲ್ ಮೂಮೆಂಟನ್ನು ಇದು ಪ್ರಿವೆಂಟ್ ಮಾಡಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಟ್ರೈ ಮಾಡ್ತದೆ ಈ ಪ್ರೆಷರು. ಹಾಗಾಗಿ ಸಾಲ್ಯೂಟ್ ಪೊಟೆನ್ಷಿಯಲ್ ಆರ್ ಆಸ್ಮೋಟಿಕ್ ಪೊಟೆನ್ಷಿಯಲ್ ಈಸ್ ಆಲ್ವೇಸ್ negative and pressure potential is always positive. So here the two values are given. Let us calculate the water potential of cell A by applying the given, by adding the given values. So water potential of cell A, what is the solute potential? minus 16, ಇಲ್ಲಿ ತಗೊಳಿಕತ್ತೀನಿ ನಾವು values, and pressure potential ಎಷ್ಟದ 8. So the water potential of cell A is minus 8. Like that, water potential of cell B, let us put the values, given values, psi S plus psi P. The psi S of cell B is minus 12 bars and this one is plus 2 bars. This becomes minus 10. Which one is more negative and which one is less negative? Minus 8 and minus 10. This is less negative and this is more negative. What it means? Means it contains less solute. Solute ಕಡಿಮೆ ಅವ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಏನರ್ಥ? ಮೋರ್ ವಾಟರ್ ಮಾಲಿಕ್ಯೂಲ್ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಅದ. ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಇಲ್ಲೇ ಇಟ್ ಕಂಟೇನ್ಸ್ ಮೋರ್ ಸಾಲ್ಯೂಟ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಲೆಸ್ ವಾಟರ್. ಇಲ್ಲೇ ಇದ್ರೊಳಗೆ ಸಾಲ್ಯೂಟ್ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಅದ, ನೀರು ಕಡಿಮೆ ಅದ. ಇಲ್ಲೇ ಸಾಲ್ಯೂಟ್ ಕಡಿಮೆ ಅದ, ನೀರು ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಅದ. ಸೊ ದ್ಯಾಟ್ ಹಿಯರ್ ದ ವಾಟರ್ ಮಾಲಿಕ್ಯೂಲ್ ಎಲ್ಲಿಂದ ಎಲ್ಲಿಗೆ ಮೂವ್ ಆಗ್ತದೆ. If this is the A cell and this is the B cell, this water potential is minus 8 and its water potential is minus 10. Here A cell contains more water and less solute. B cell contains less water and more solute. Obviously, during osmosis, the movement of water molecule occur from more water potential to less water potential. So where there is higher concentration of the water, from that region the water molecule move towards the lower concentrated area. Therefore, the movement of the water is taking place from cell A to cell B. This is how you need to calculate for the water potential, and finally the direction of osmosis can be determined from less negative to more negative. Whatever the values may be, that is not important. Water potential of any cell can be calculated with the help of psi W is equal to psi S plus psi P. Psi S is always negative because it prevents the osmosis, and psi P is pressure potential. It allows the osmosis, and therefore psi S is having negative values, psi P is having positive values. This is how you need to determine the direction of the osmosis when it is asked to determine between two adjacent cells with the values of water potential. Hope this is clear for you. So, moving to the NCERT exemplar questions, here is the first list. Which of the following statements does not apply to river osmosis? So river osmosis ಗೆ ಯಾವುದು ಅಪ್ಲೈ ಆಗಲ್ಲ? Osmosis is a passive process without expenditure of any energy. The osmosis takes place. So whether it is regular osmosis, the reverse osmosis, that doesn't matter. So for this one, the right option is it is a passive process, because water molecule move from the region of their higher concentration to the region of their lower concentration without expenditure of energy. Therefore, the right option for this one is option C. Which one of the following will not directly affect the transpiration? Previously, I discussed about transpiration. The rate of transpiration is affected by temperature. The rate of transpiration is affected by light. What is the relation between light and transpiration? If light is available, the stomata will remain in the opened condition, and opened condition of the stomata support the loss of water in the form of vapor. And wind speed, if the blowing wind is very high, its velocity is more, then it will increase the rate of transpiration. So among the given options, there is no link between chlorophyll content of the leaves and rate of transpiration. This particular option or this part of the leaf is not directly affecting the transpiration. The lower surface of the leaf will have more number of stomata in a dorsiventral leaf. This experiment you have performed in the laboratory. Vinca rosea. Which surface of the leaf contains more number of stomata? All the dicot leaves show more number of stomata on the lower epidermis and less number of stomata on the upper epidermis. And dicot leaves are called dorsoventral leaves. Lower surface with more number of stomata is the character of dorsiventral leaf. And remember, the dorsiventral leaf is nothing but dicot leaf. The form of sugar transported through the phloem. Not necessary to think. ಪ್ಲಾಂಟ್ಸ್ ಒಳಗೆ ಫೋಟೋಸಿಂಥಸಿಸ್ ಆದಾಗ ತಯಾರಾಗೋದು ಸುಕ್ರೋಸ್. ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಸುಕ್ರೋಸ್ ಈಸ್ ಟ್ರಾನ್ಸ್ಪೋರ್ಟೆಡ್ ಥ್ರೂ ದ ಫ್ಲೋಯಮ್. ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ರಿಮೆಂಬರ್ ದಿಸ್ ಈಸ್ ಮೋಸ್ಟ್ ನಾನ್ ರಿಯಾಕ್ಟಿವ್ ಫಾರ್ಮ್ ಆಫ್ ದ ಕಾರ್ಬೋಹೈಡ್ರೇಟ್. It is a completely inactive form of the carbohydrate. It is a disaccharide. It is made up of 2 glucose units. Then fructose is fruit sugar. Glucose is hexose, made up of 6 carbon compound, and due to the presence of CHO group, it is highly active in condition. That is aldehydic group. And ribose sugar is present in RNA. The inactive form of the sugar synthesized during the photosynthesis and translocated through the phloem is nothing but sucrose. Then next question. The process of guttation takes place. ಯಾವಾಗ ಆಗ್ತದ ಗಟೇಷನ್ ಅಂದರೆ ಆವಾಗಲೇ ಹೇಳಿದೆ, ಲಾಸ್ ಆಫ್ ವಾಟರ್ ಇನ್ ದ ಫಾರ್ಮ್ ಆಫ್ ಲಿಕ್ವಿಡ್ ವಾಟರ್ ಆರ್ ಇನ್ ದ ಫಾರ್ಮ್ ಆಫ್ ಡ್ರಾಪ್ಲೆಟ್ ಈಸ್ ನಥಿಂಗ್ ಬಟ್ ಗಟೇಷನ್. ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಗಟೇಷನ್ ಆಕರ್ಸ್, ರಿಮೆಂಬರ್, when root pressure is high and the rate of transpiration is low. The absorption of the water will be more by the roots, but rate of transpiration is very low. In that case, the guttation occurs. The next question, which of the following is example for imbibition? To imbibe andre to swell anta artha. When you soak the dry seeds in the water, the size or volume of the seeds gradually increases. When you put a piece of wood in the water, that also swells, ಉಬ್ಕೊಂತದ. ಸೊ ಇದನ್ನು ಇಂಬೈಬಿಷನ್ ಅಂತ ಕರೀತಾರೆ. Adsorption of the water by the colloidal substances is called imbibition. I use the term adsorption. The molecules are held below the surface, that is adsorption. Adsorption of the water by dead colloidal particles is called imbibition. And in the given option, the only one correct option for the imbibition is swelling of seeds when put in the soil, not in the dry soil. Along with the water, when seeds are soaked or allowed to germinate in the soil, it results in first step, that is imbibition before germination. When a plant undergoes senescence, the nutrients may be translocated. ಸೆನೆಸೆನ್ಸ್ ಅಂದರೆ ಏಜಿಂಗ್ ಪ್ರಾಸೆಸ್ಸು. ಈಗ ಒಂದು ಪ್ಲಾಂಟ್ ಬಾಡಿನ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ ಅಂತ ತಗೊಂಡಾಗ ಅಲ್ಲೇ ಲೀವ್ಸು ಯಂಗ್ ಇದ್ದಾಗ ಗ್ರೀನ್ ಇನ್ ಕಲರ್ ಒಳಗಿರ್ತಾವೆ, ಗ್ರೀನ್ ಇನ್ ಕಂಡೀಷನ್. ಬಟ್ ವೆನ್ ಇಟ್ ಟರ್ನ್ಸ್ ಟು ಯೆಲ್ಲೋ, ಸಾವಕಾಶ ಯೆಲ್ಲೋ ಕಲರಿಗೆ ಟರ್ನ್ ಆದರೆ ಇಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಅಂಡರ್ ಗೋಯಿಂಗ್ ಸೆನೆಸೆನ್ಸ್ ಅಂತ ಅರ್ಥ. ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಏಜ್ ಆಗ್ಲಿಕ್ಕತ್ತದ. ವೆನ್ ದ ಬಾಡಿ ಪಾರ್ಟ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ದ ಪ್ಲಾಂಟ್ ಆರ್ ಸಬ್ಜೆಕ್ಟೆಡ್ ಟು ಸೆನೆಸೆನ್ಸ್, the content of that part is translocated to another living tissue. Young tissue ka ತನ್ನ ಬಾಡಿ ಒಳಗೆ ಅಥವಾ ತನ್ನ ಪಾರ್ಟ್ ಒಳಗೆ ಏನು ಕಂಟೆಂಟ್ ಅದ ಅದನ್ನದು ಟ್ರಾನ್ಸ್ಲೋಕೇಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತದ. ವಾಟರ್ ಪೊಟೆನ್ಷಿಯಲ್ ಆಫ್ ಪ್ಯೂರ್ ವಾಟರ್ ಅಟ್ ಸ್ಟ್ಯಾಂಡರ್ಡ್ ಟೆಂಪ್ರೇಚರ್ ಈಸ್ ಈಕ್ವಲ್ ಟು, ಇದಕ್ಕೆ ಭಾಳ ವಿಚಾರ ಮಾಡೋದೇ ಬೇಕಾಗಿಲ್ಲ. ವಾಟರ್ ಪೊಟೆನ್ಷಿಯಲ್ ಆಫ್ ಪ್ಯೂರ್ ವಾಟರ್ ಏನೇ ಕೊಡಲಿ ಅವ್ರ ಮುಂದ್ಗಡೆ ಪ್ರೆಷರು, ಟೆಂಪ್ರೇಚರು, ವಾಟ್ ಎವರ್ ಇಟ್ ಈಸ್, the right answer is 0. The water potential of pure water is always 0. Then moving to the next question. Okay. Choose the correct option. Mycorrhiza is a symbiotic association of fungus with the root system which helps in. Okay, interesting one. Mycorrhiza. Mycos andre ಫಂಗಸ್ ಅಂತ ಅರ್ಥ, ರಹಿಜಾ ಅಂದರೆ ಹೇರ್ ಲೈಕ್ ಸ್ಟ್ರಕ್ಚರ್. ವಿಚ್ ಒನ್ ಈಸ್ ದ ಹೇರ್ ಲೈಕ್ ಸ್ಟ್ರಕ್ಚರ್ ಇನ್ ಪ್ಲಾಂಟ್ ಬಾಡಿ? ಪ್ಲಾಂಟ್ ಬಾಡಿ ಒಳಗೆ ಹೇರ್ ಲೈಕ್ ಸ್ಟ್ರಕ್ಚರ್ ಈಸ್ ನಥಿಂಗ್ ಬಟ್ ರೂಟ್. ಯಾವಾಗ ರೂಟು ಫಂಗಸ್ದ ಜೊತೆಗೆ ಅಸೋಸಿಯೇಟ್ ಆಗ್ತದೆ, ಅದನ್ನು ಮೈಕೋರಹಿಜಾ ಅಂತ ಕರೀತಾರೆ. ಸೊ ಮೈಕೋರಹಿಜಾ ಇದ್ದಲ್ಲೇ ಅಡ್ವಾಂಟೇಜ್ ಏನು, ಬೆನಿಫಿಟ್ ಏನು ಅಂದರೆ ಇಟ್ ಅಬ್ಸಾರ್ಬ್ಸ್ ದ ಫಾಸ್ಫರಸ್ ಕಂಟೆಂಟ್ ಫ್ರಮ್ ದ ಸಾಯಿಲ್. ನಾನು ಇದನ್ನು ಬೇಕಾದ ಸರಿ ರಿಪೀಟ್ ಮಾಡೀನಿ. ಬ್ಯಾಕ್ಟೀರಿಯಾ ಆರ್ ಅಬ್ಸಾರ್ಬಿಂಗ್ ದ ಅಟ್ಮಾಸ್ಫೆರಿಕ್ ನೈಟ್ರೋಜನ್, ಬಟ್ ಫಂಗೈ ಆರ್ ಅಬ್ಸಾರ್ಬಿಂಗ್ ದ ಫಾಸ್ಫರಸ್ ಫ್ರಮ್ ದ ಸಾಯಿಲ್. ನಾಟ್ ಓನ್ಲಿ ದ್ಯಾಟ್, ಪ್ಲಾಂಟ್ ಬಾಡಿ ಆಫ್ ದ ಫಂಗೈ, ನೀವು ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಇಯರ್ ಒಳಗೆ ಕಲ್ತೀರಿ ಇದನ್ನು. ದ ಪ್ಲಾಂಟ್ ಬಾಡಿ ಆಫ್ ದ ಫಂಗೈ ಈಸ್ ಕಾಲ್ಡ್ ದ mycelium, and individual thread-like structure of the mycelium is called hyphae, and that hyphae absorbs the moisture content. Water absorption ಗೆ help ಮಾಡ್ತದೆ. So which one is the correct answer? Choose the correct option. And for this one actually options miss ಆಯಿತು. ಇದು ವಾಟರ್ ಅಬ್ಸಾರ್ಬ್ಷನ್ನು ಮಾಡ್ತದೆ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಮಿನರಲ್ ನ್ಯೂಟ್ರಿಷನಿಗೂ ಹೆಲ್ಪ್ ಮಾಡ್ತದೆ. ಸೊ ಬೋತ್ ಎ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಬಿ, ಅದು ಆಪ್ಷನ್ ಎ ಬಿ ಸಿ ಡಿ ಮಿಸ್ ಆಯಿತು. ಸೊ ದಿಸ್ ಹೆಲ್ಪ್ ಇನ್ ಬೋತ್ ಅಬ್ಸಾರ್ಬ್ಷನ್ ಆಫ್ ವಾಟರ್ ಆ್ಯಸ್ ವೆಲ್ ಆ್ಯಸ್ ದ ಅಬ್ಸಾರ್ಬ್ಷನ್ ಆಫ್ ಮಿನರಲ್ ನ್ಯೂಟ್ರಿಯೆಂಟ್ಸ್. ಓಕೆ, ಬೇಸ್ಡ್ ಆನ್ ದ ಫಿಗರ್ ಗಿವನ್ ಬಿಲೋ ವಿಚ್ ಆಫ್ ದ ಫಾಲೋವಿಂಗ್ ಸ್ಟೇಟ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಈಸ್ ನಾಟ್ ಕರೆಕ್ಟ್. ಈ ಎರಡು ಸೆಲ್ಗಳನ್ನು ಅಡ್ಜಸೆಂಟ್ ಆಗಿ ಪ್ಲೇಸ್ ಮಾಡಿರೋ ಅಂಥದ್ದು ಎ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಬಿ, ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಬೋತ್ ಆಫ್ ದೆಮ್ ಆರ್ ಸಪರೇಟೆಡ್ ಬೈ ಸೆಮಿ ಪರ್ಮಿಯೇಬಲ್ ಮೆಮ್ರೇನ್. ಎ ಸೆಲ್ಲು ಅಥವಾ ಎ ಫಿಗರ್ ಒಳಗೆ ಸಾಲ್ಯೂಟ್ ಮಾಲಿಕ್ಯೂಲ್ ಕಡಿಮೆ ಅವ, ವಾಟರ್ ಮಾಲಿಕ್ಯೂಲ್ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಅದ. ಬಿ ಒಳಗೆ ಸಾಲ್ಯೂಟ್ ಮಾಲಿಕ್ಯೂಲ್ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಅದ, ವಾಟರ್ ಮಾಲಿಕ್ಯೂಲ್ ಕಡಿಮೆ ಅದ. ಅಂದ್ರೆ ವಾಟರ್ ಮಾಲಿಕ್ಯೂಲ್ ಯಾವುದ್ರೊಳಗೆ ಹೈಯರ್ ಕಾನ್ಸಂಟ್ರೇಷನ್ ಆಯಿತು? ಎ ಪಾರ್ಟ್ ಒಳಗೆ ಕಾನ್ಸಂಟ್ರೇಷನ್ ಆಫ್ ದ ವಾಟರ್ ಮಾಲಿಕ್ಯೂಲ್ ಈಸ್ ಮೋರ್ ಆ್ಯಸ್ ಕಂಪೇರ್ಡ್ ಟು ದ ಬಿ. ಸೊ ಏನಾಗಬೇಕು? ವಾಟರ್ ವಿಲ್ ಮೂವ್ ಫ್ರಾಮ್ ಎ ಟು ಬಿ. ಆಪ್ಷನ್ ನೋಡೋಣ. ಹೌ ಇಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಪಾಸಿಬಲ್? ಬಿಕಾಸ್ ಇಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಸಪರೇಟೆಡ್ ಬೈ ಸೆಮಿ ಪರ್ಮಿಯಬಲ್ ಮೆಮ್ರೇನ್. ಎರಡು ಬೇರೆ ಬೇರೆ ಕಾನ್ಸಂಟ್ರೇಷನ್ ಇರೋಂಥ ಸೊಲ್ಯೂಷನ್ಸು ಅಥವಾ ವಾಟರು ಸೆಮಿ ಪರ್ಮಿಯಬಲ್ ಮೆಮ್ರೇನಿಂದ ಸೆಪರೇಟ್ ಆದಾಗ definitely there is a movement of the water taking place through the higher concentration to lower concentration. Option ಏನವ ನೋಡೋಣ. Movement of solvent molecule will take place from chamber A to B. It is correct. Solvent is nothing but water. Movement of solute will takes place from A to B. Solute to semi-permeable membrane through move ಆಗಲ್ಲ. Presence of semi-permeable membrane is prerequisite for the process to occur. Osmosis ನಡಿಬೇಕು ಅಂದರೆ semi-permeable membrane ಇರಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಬೇಕು. The direction and rate of the osmosis depends on both the pressure gradient and concentration gradient. 100%. ಸಾಲ್ಯೂಟ್ ಎಷ್ಟು ಪ್ರಮಾಣದೊಳಗದ ಅದರ ಮೇಲೆ ಆಸ್ಮೋಸಿಸ್ ರೇಟು ಡಿಪೆಂಡ್ ಆಗಿರ್ತದೆ. ಸೊ ಇಲ್ಲೇ ಎ ಆಪ್ಷನ್ ಕರೆಕ್ಟ್ ಅದ, ಸಿ ಕರೆಕ್ಟ್ ಅದ, ಡಿ ಕರೆಕ್ಟ್ ಅದ. The only one wrong statement about the given figure is movement of solute will take place from A to B. Solute move ಆಗಲ್ಲ, solvent move ಆಗ್ತದೆ. So this one is the wrong statement identify ಮಾಡ್ಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಹೇಳ್ಯಾರ. So this is the correct option for the given question. Then moving to the last two questions. Match the following. ಯಾವ್ಯಾವು ಏನೇನು ಮಾಡ್ತವೆ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ನೋಡೋಣ. Leaves are involved in transpiration because loss of the water occur in the form of vapor through the stomata, and stomata are distributed on the epidermis of leaves. Seeds undergo swelling when soaked in water. It is imbibition. Roots are involved in absorption of water and minerals. Aspirin is also an anti-transpirant. Phenyl mercuric acetate ಜೊತೆಗೆ ಇದನ್ನು ಒಂದು ನೆನಪಿಟ್ಕೋಬೇಕು. ಪ್ಲಾಸ್ಮೋಲೈಸ್ಡ್ ಸೆಲ್ ನೆಗೆಟಿವ್ ಆಸ್ಮೋಟಿಕ್ ಪೊಟೆನ್ಷಿಯಲ್. ಯಾಕಂದರೆ ಎಲ್ಲಿ ಪ್ಲಾಸ್ಮೋಲೈಸಿಸ್ ಆಗಿರ್ತದೆ ಆ ಸೆಲ್ ಫ್ಲಾಸಿಡ್ ಆಗ್ತದೆ, ಚಪ್ಪಟಾಗಿರ್ತದೆ, ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಆಸ್ಮೋಟಿಕ್ ಪೊಟೆನ್ಷಿಯಲ್ ಜನರೇಟ್ ಆಗಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಸಾಧ್ಯನೇ ಇಲ್ಲ. ಟರ್ಜಿಡ್ ಸೆಲ್ ಇತ್ತು ಅಂದರೆ ಪಾಸಿಟಿವ್ ಆಸ್ಮೋಟಿಕ್ ಪೊಟೆನ್ಷಿಯಲ್ ಇರ್ತದೆ, ಫ್ಲಾಸಿಡ್ ಸೆಲ್ ಇತ್ತು ಅಂದರೆ ನೆಗೆಟಿವ್ ಆಸ್ಮೋಟಿಕ್ ಪೊಟೆನ್ಷಿಯಲ್. ಸೊ ಫಾರ್ ಮ್ಯಾಚ್ ದ ಫಾಲೋವಿಂಗ್ ಆಪ್ಷನ್ ನೋಡ್ರಿ. ಎ ಕ ಸೆಕೆಂಡ್ ಒನ್, ಎ ಬಿ ಕ ಫೋರ್ತ್ ಒನ್, C fifth one, D first one, E second one. ಯಾವುದು? ವೇರ್ ಇಸ್ ದಟ್ ಆಪ್ಷನ್? Eek third one. So option A is the right answer. Okay. Mark the mismatched pair. ಒಂದಿಷ್ಟು ಸೆಲ್ ಪಾರ್ಟು ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ರಿಲೇಟೆಡ್ ಪಾಯಿಂಟನ್ನು ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಮೆನ್ಷನ್ ಮಾಡಿರುವಂಥದ್ದು. ಸೊ ಅಮೈಲೋಪ್ಲಾಸ್ಟ್ ಸ್ಟೋರ್ ಪ್ರೋಟೀನ್ ಗ್ರ್ಯಾನ್ಯೂಲ್, ಇಲಿಯೋಪ್ಲಾಸ್ಟ್ ಸ್ಟೋರ್ ಆಯಿಲ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಫ್ಯಾಟ್, ಕ್ಲೋರೋಪ್ಲಾಸ್ಟ್ ಕಂಟೈನ್ ಕ್ಲೋರೋಫಿಲ್ ಪಿಗ್ಮೆಂಟ್, ಕ್ರೋಮೋಪ್ಲಾಸ್ಟ್ ಕಂಟೈನ್ ಕಲರ್ಡ್ ಪಿಗ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಅದರ್ ದನ್ ಕ್ಲೋರೋಫಿಲ್. ಇಲ್ಲೇ ಬಿ ಸಿ ಡಿ ಕರೆಕ್ಟ್ ಅವ. ರಾಂಗ್ ಯಾವುದದ? ಆಪ್ಷನ್ ಎ. ಬಿಕಾಸ್ ಅಮೈಲೋಪ್ಲಾಸ್ಟ್ ಸ್ಟೋರ್ಸ್ ದ ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಚ್, ನಾಟ್ ಪ್ರೋಟೀನ್. ಪ್ರೋಟೀನ್ ಇತ್ತು ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಎಲುವಿರೋಪ್ಲಾಸ್ಟ್ ಅಂತ ಕರೀತಾರೆ. ಇಟ್ ಈಸ್ ನಾಟ್ ಅಮೈಲೋಪ್ಲಾಸ್ಟ್. ಅಮೈಲೋಪ್ಲಾಸ್ಟ್ ಸ್ಟೋರ್ಸ್ ದ ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಚ್. It stores the starch. So here this one is the mismatched pair given in the option. So these are the some questions that I wanted to discuss on transport in plants. Hope the discussed part is clear for you. Thank you.